Come on in, sit back and relax. Welcome to episode 178 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. This podcast features interviews, news, analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. And this episode is part of our ongoing series on RIA aggregators. And I was able to secure an interview with Doug Besso, CTO of HighTower. Doug has over 30 years of experience in financial services, and I like him because he's a comp sci major. We got to stick together, us computer science guys. Doug, before his 11 years at HighTower, he was head of IT at Calamos Investments and spent 10 years at Wachovia Securities, to name a few. So this is a really fun interview. I got into a lot of interesting stuff about the core aspects of the HighTower tech platform, but was interested to hear how firms are building out their own custom advisor platforms using a combination of off-the-shelf tools and internally built technology. We will talk about the build versus buy question, and then about fitting in all the different pieces to building a unique experience for advisors. And if you are an executive of a wealth tech firm that's selling software to RIAs, broker-dealers, asset managers, TAMPs, or others, then you should run, not walk, to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com, and fill out the Get in Touch form on our homepage. Our industry experts can deliver a wide range of advice, including competitive analysis, new product evaluations, market insights, and strategic advice. Every vendor needs these things to be successful, especially when entering new markets. And you can get on the right track by going to EzraGroupLLC.com. One quick housekeeping note before we continue. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Now, let's kick this thing off. I'm pleased to introduce our next guest on the program. It is Doug Besso, CTO of HighTower Advisors. Doug, welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm so glad that we could coordinate this and get you on the program. I've been trying to get you over here for quite some time. Where are you calling in from today?
Well, I am taking advantage of the HighTower. We have a high flex model, so I am on the road. Enjoying a month away from Chicago, the cold winters in Chicago, and I'm currently in Siesta Key, Florida.
That is awesome. I'm a little jealous. I am also traveling. I'm in London, and the weather is not as nice here as it is down there for you.
No doubt.
So you get to enjoy that. Well, let's jump right in. Can you please give us a quick 30-second elevator pitch for HighTower Advisors for anyone living under a rock who doesn't know who you guys are?
Great. So HighTower, we are a 15-year-old firm. We're made up of about 130 practices operating under a single ADV. And what, from a technology standpoint, we provide the platform that our advisors use to for their clients and for the advisors to operate their business.
Terrific. So the purpose of this interview, we're talking about, obviously from the technology point of view, as a CTO of one of the fastest growing firms in the country in our space. We're talking about, if we were at a roundtable discussion with other CTOs, what's some of the things you would share about how you built your technology stack? And there's a lot going on there. So one of the first things you said was to start with is, what's your core? Can you explain what that means? What's your core? What are some of the things you would think about when you're building if you're starting from scratch, what would you do?
Yeah, and we did build from scratch, right? So it's a relevant question about our history, and it really started with the client, knowing who your client is, and for us, the client is both the advisor, since we are made up of a collection of independent practices that we operate together, and then it's the end client, right? So the advisor is servicing their end client and having information around that, and centering everything you do about the experience that the client has and the advisor has allowed us to integrate a platform where we can have a common center, which is always the client in focus. And it enables you to do navigation, to share data, to make sure you're always looking at the same thing, but not have to build everything yourself, right? Have vendors in different parts of your ecosystem talk to each other from that client-centric standpoint. So that was the first bet we made. Was centering everything around the client, and then making sure you gather as much data as possible about both the advisors and the clients so that you could enhance the experience.
And one of the first bets you made was on a CRM, and you guys chose Salesforce. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose that and how you've used it and leveraged it in your tech stack?
Right, yeah, and I think making a bet on something is really important. So in the time frame that we partnered with Salesforce, it was about the ecosystem, not just the CRM. We never looked at it as a CRM. The ecosystem, having a platform where you can build applications and build integrations was really important to us, because you don't want to be passing data between all your platforms. You want to be integrating data between the platforms, and that having an ecosystem that was already established, and we're going to be survivable was really important to us. And when we went out in the marketplace, just about every vendor we worked with, or wanted to work with, had an integration to Salesforce, was going to have an integration to Salesforce on the roadmap, and recognized that that partnership to them was going to be very important to their ability to operate within the ecosystem of wealth management. So I think that was critical to us, because we really wanted to make sure that everything we built and the vendors we worked with, while they may come and go, that we'd have that common center that we'd be able to navigate through. And Salesforce has worked very well for that.
And you've taken Salesforce to the next level. It's not just your CRM, but you've also built a lot of applications inside Salesforce.
Correct. Yeah, we built over a dozen applications, from client agreements, the whole revenue process, and how we manage revenue for all those independent firms, because they're all collecting revenue in different ways and be able to do those calculations. We wanted to be able to have that center run through Salesforce. We've created workflow within the Salesforce ecosystem, and being able to visualize a workflow tool that allows our practices to share common things, but also unify them and unify the processes together. So that's been a big something we did probably in the last 4 or 5 years. It's been one of the biggest hits, and that's all done within the Salesforce Clear. The system we use is called Clear, that we built, but we've done that all within that Clear ecosystem.
And the advantage there is you get a seamless navigation, and it seems as though it's one system to advisors.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think it's really important especially when you're taking a bunch of in the RIA space, right? Everybody wants to have some identity and ability to run a practice with some independence, but it should always feel like HighTower. It should have a common look and feel to it. The navigation should be seamless. It should be more than just single sign-on. It's a matter of keeping data in context. And when you have a client up in one system, you want to go into another, that client information should not have to be retyped. It should come up, and the advisor can navigate between those two experiences, but it should look and feel the same. Data should be the same. If you can get the context of how the client's going to appear, you want it to be universal. And that even extends out to the client experience, right? So we've done things at the client level. You want what the client sees to be going between different platforms. It should look and feel the same. And really that center has allowed us to do that.
Indeed, and that was a great choice. And also something we recommend as well, all else being equal, it's always better to have one platform for everything. Even though you could have built these different applications in different technologies or other different systems, building them all in Salesforce, there were some limitations, but you have one database for everything.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there's nothing worse than data being out of sync and looking at two pieces of information that are different because of timing or anything else. Yeah, if it's coming from the same place, there's really not the risk of the data not being universal.
Exactly. All else being equal, keep one platform.
Correct.
Let's talk a bit about filling in the pieces of IP. So you mentioned building unique experiences. And so you built a lot inside Salesforce. How did you make those experiences unique? How did you bring in your own IP to build this experience that was different from other firms?
Yeah, I think the first thing is being realistic about the marketplace. So, rather than trying just to find ways to be unique, we looked at where the market was very well served. And you can call those commodity. I don't want to insult a vendor by saying what they have as a commodity, but it's a commodity to us. We can buy it. It's very well done. There's no purpose in us trying to recreate that and incrementally improve it would be very risky. So you want to consume those things and take advantage. And if anything, have those vendors compete for your business so that you get economies of scale and pricing, and you get them to create the features that you would have created anyway. What that leaves you with is, and you can call it the 80-20 rule, the 90-10 rules, leaves you with that bit that's in between there that you think is really unique to the way you run your business. And there's certainly things in our business that are unique in the way we've set up and run independent practices that are running under a single ADV. There's a lot of things we want to do centralized to bring down cost and efficiency, but also offer a lot of enhanced features and flexibility. So how we did that was to find the applications and the things that we needed to build, and then to create unique experiences. I already kind of alluded to the one on workflow was something where we just we had some really good ideas about how we wanted to do things, and the core of the CRM just didn't allow you to do that. So we created a visual workflow system that allows you to drag and drop things and move things around and see what people are working on and create those common tasks and do it in a way that just makes it so much easier than trying to go in and manage tasks at the CRM level. And it worked really well for us. And we can share those around the entire firm. So it really gives you the ability to do that. I think other areas of collaboration is, there's nothing better than sharing and seeing what people are doing. And Salesforce is great at that, right? Because they've already got Chatter built within the Salesforce system. So taking something like Chatter and making it a centerpiece of our core platform where people can talk to each other and ask questions and share ideas has been a huge part of our culture, because we really do want to collaborate. And sometimes that's advisors talking to advisors and not having someone in corporate try to interpret that or pitch that. We're all working together all the time. And Chatter really brings that ability out, and we use that across the firm.
One thing you mentioned was avoiding incremental improvements, and that's such an important point. We see a lot of firms spending big dollars, not on innovative features, but on incremental improvements. How did you come up with that and avoid that trap?
Yeah, I think it's experience. So having come from the wirehouse world many years ago, where we had to build a lot of things ourselves because of the scale, you start to realize that at the end of the day, the system that you have wasn't the best in the market, and you spend a lot of time and dollars just trying to keep pace with that innovation that others were already doing. So I think once you get your focus narrowed into the things you really want to do, it allows you to be creative. And create that and be agile. And then I think the other thing is listening. We listen to our advisors, and they know the business way better than I'm ever going to. I've been doing this my whole career, but I'm not an advisor, right? I can take great ideas from advisors and put them together, and take our technology team, which is also fantastically talented, and our marketing people, and people across the firm, and we can create really good ideas, because we can collaborate like that. So I think listening and the ability to respond rapidly, because we're agile, has really helped us create things collectively that we never would have done as individuals. Really, really powerful. And I think we all know that the power of many is always going to be stronger than the power of one.
Absolutely. And it's so important to be able to visualize where you want to bring innovation, where you want to avoid that, and use what the vendors have. And something you mentioned earlier, you were apologizing for calling some of these platforms commodities. No, they understand their commodities. I wrote an article 4 years ago now that 50 portfolio management platforms can't all survive. Right? We have so many of everything that some things have become a commodity. But it's like you said, let the vendors compete for your business. It's up to them to come up with ways to differentiate that you can then leverage.
Right. No, that's very fair.
Let's move on to another topic, which I think is on a lot of CTOs' minds, which is buy versus build. So how do you make a decision? Obviously, with Salesforce, you bought and built, but how do you decide other ways where you might just build from scratch versus buying? What's some of your key areas of deciding that, making that question answered?
Yeah, no, it's the hardest one. But I think it starts with, we build a 3-year roadmap. So I think the first thing is having a vision of where you want to be. And by going out 3 years, I wish I could go out 5, but 5 gets really tough when you're basing it on technology. So I think a solid 3-year vision of where we think we want to be in 3 years is something we update every year. It takes into factors things that are going on in the outside world, as I like to say, not just the wealth management space, but just technology innovation that's out there that we maybe want to bring into our firm because we think it could be a competitive advantage, or just something our clients and our advisors are going to want to have. And then others are things that are happening within the business. What's it could be planning. We want to do something on the planning side. It could be, like we said, there's performance reporting and some innovations on platforms out there that we want to make sure we get in there. Alternative investments right now and alternative marketplaces are huge in our business. So how we're going to integrate and talk to those platforms is something that we want to make sure we're laying out in our roadmap. So once we have the roadmap, then it's a matter of trying to find out those things that are available in the marketplace versus the things that are just not. And I think we try to make conscious decisions on that and always evaluating vendors. And then we talked about the efficiencies or the IP that you can create is the last piece. Is where do we really think we have a different view, and it's something we don't want to have someone build for us, that we really think we can build it better. We can create it the way we want to run our business, and it's going to have a return for our advisors and our clients. Because if it doesn't have that return, then we shouldn't be doing it. So it's a multi-step process that takes a lot of thought and debate, and we love active debate. So I think as you work through the process, ensuring that people are communicating, you're very clear in your vision, you know how it fits into your roadmap, and then you wind down to the things you're actually going to focus and execute on, which becomes your 1-year plan.
When you are looking at the ROI of technology, what's a rule of thumb you use for deciding whether or not the ROI would be enough for you to build something versus?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because sometimes you can do a quick financial model on ROI and say, look, this is going to have a payback of let's just say it's less than a year, right? That's fantastic. So those become no-brainers. I can do this. I can either save money. It's really hard to say I'm going to generate revenue, because you're always taking a little bit of risk. The revenue will materialize. But I think if you can find things that mathematically work, and we always have some of those on the table, then it's great. There's things that reduce risk, and we are all in a risk management business. So in some cases, we look at the risk and say, look, we need to do this. We think it's a really, really smart thing to do. It'll help reduce risk across our business and help us manage the business better. Those become no-brainers as well. And then I think there's just things we talked about, that ecosystem and the look and feel, and there's other things that you do just because you're trying to create that experience, and you have to invest in it. So those are not so much financial models to say this is going to get us a return of X on the investment, as much as it's part of creating that ecosystem, and we're willing to invest in that because we think it's really important to running our business. And to do that, you obviously need a good executive team. You need a good board that is supportive of trying to grow your business for the long haul. So we do a lot of that as well. And I would say it's not hard if you have the right type of management within your firm, but it certainly takes some creativity to be able to see what the vision is you're trying to create in that space. So from the ones that are really straightforward to the ones that are a little less straightforward is kind of that continuum there that I just outlined.
It's important that the different heads of the business all work together and communicate, because technology affects all of them, even though they're not directly building or supporting the technology.
100%. Right. I mean, we'd love to focus on growth things all day, right? That would be great if everything we did was just to grow our business. But, you're running a complex ecosystem from risk to the financial side of your business and the operation side of your business, right? At the end of the day, all those things are very, very important to piece together.
Let me tease apart a couple of nuggets of wisdom shared in this last couple minutes. You said, make conscious decisions. And there's so much in just that little phrase. And I can't tell you how many clients we work with where they're sort of their decisions are being made for them, or they're not really thinking about it as a decision. It just sort of happens. So as you mentioned, bringing all the leaders of the organization together to really think about, hey, we're putting a 3-year roadmap. What are we doing? And why are we going this way over this way? And having someone, give you some criticism. Why are you doing that? And have to justify it. So each one of your decisions is consciously made rather than, oh, someone said that, we don't even remember who decided on that particular thing. As opposed to we know why we did that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you just made me think of something while you said that, because it like data, like we ask for data. We make sure when we have a contract with a vendor that we have access to data integration. Even if we don't know what we want to do with it, we want to make sure we can have it and that they can support it. And it goes back to those partnerships to say, we're thinking down the road, because down the road, we may want that. And if they can't accommodate that, or we're prevented from doing it, then that's a negative. And maybe that's something we want to evaluate before we get into a relationship. So it goes back to that conscious decision is, look, we know where we're going to go. And we think that having integration and having data is always going to be important to us. It becomes a foundation of what we do. Even if we don't think don't know what we're going to do with it today, we want to make sure we have it. And that's a great example of a conscious decision we make when we enter into partnerships and relationships with third parties.
One thing we recommend to our clients is document your decisions, especially the big ones, but even the little ones, because management changes, there's turnover, and things years go by and people don't remember why they made a particular decision. So if it's written down, you can see, oh yeah, here's at the time we had this, and this going on, so we chose this. That maybe that's no longer the case. This way you have a record of how that decision was made and what the justification was. So if that underlying environment changes, now we can change this particular system or this particular way of doing things.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that. And it's kind of fun. We go back and look at our old roadmaps, and there's things that we did in there that never materialized. That's fine. You got to be bold. You got to be thinking out there. But there's a lot in there that we did, and we can go back and look at those and say, this was what we wanted to do, and we built towards it, and we actually achieved it. And you should be able to see those things over time because, just like you said, is you've documented it, you've kind of written it down that it's what your goal was, and you had a plan to get there, and then you got there over time.
We're very much into integrations at my company. We do a lot of research on integrations and a lot of work with clients integration. So always asking for that integration support from a vendor is key. We wish more clients would do that, and thinking ahead, because even if you don't need it today, you might need it in the future. But even knowing to ask that question, a lot of firms don't know because they don't spend the time to talk to their vendors about these things, especially when it comes to switching vendors. We found some contracts are very anti-client, where the vendors have all the control if you try to leave and you don't even own your own data. You've got to pay them to get it. So checking the contract for what your rights are when it comes to your own data is also important. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that, right? Because it's like, why should you have to pay for your data? It's your data. And that's the right answer. If you ask that question and you hear anything other than it's your data, of course you can have it, then that tells you something. Because the good vendors, and I'll say the good ones, right? They understand that. It's your data. You should have access to it and it's yours. And while you're right, they certainly want to make it harder to leave them. It shouldn't be because they're locking your data, right? That's just the wrong reason.
We're almost out of time, and I wanted to get a couple of some interesting things that we had said in our prep call. If there were 3 tips you could provide to CTOs of other firms, or maybe they're just starting out like you are, they're in the early days of their firm, what would those 3 tips be for building their tech stack and their ecosystem and their 3-year roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is you're going to have to make some bets. And when I talk to those that are just starting out in the space, I think that's always the hardest one. Is you don't want to make a bet too early and in the wrong choice, right? But you're going to have to make some bets. So look at where you want to build your core, and you're going to have to partner or bet on what that strategy is, and be willing to do that, because it's really hard if you're not willing to commit, right? So you got to commit someplace. And the second thing is that roadmap is take the time to know where you want to go. You really can't get there. And I always say you can use the house. I have to build a foundation for the first floor before I build the second floor. Whatever analogy you want to use or visualization you want to use, but it applies, right? We're building technology not for the sake of technology. We're building it to put it all together. So we need to have the plan of how we want it to be there. I think the other piece is those vendor relationships. It's really important to have strong relationships and not be building everything yourself. So you're going to have to spend the time in the marketplace and evaluate who you want to be partnered with, how you want to manage that relationship, and where you want to leverage them to grow your business. I think that's really important. And I think the third thing is that, we have a great advantage here that we can listen to advisors in this space, right? It's the advisors know the business very well. They don't know technology typically. So the partnership there is, what do you need to run your practice? What do you need to run this business better, to serve your clients better, and put together that ecosystem that creates and enables that experience for them. And I think that listening part is a really important part of that, because we're not building things just for the sake of building them. We're building them to make the business better. And I think we've learned to be good listeners. And it can be fun when you see how you can put things together and create things that you never thought possible. And I think that's it takes a little while to get there. That wasn't the case in the early days because you were block and tackling. But as you start to get and leverage your environment, you really can do some amazing things by listening.
Doug, you've really put on a master class here, and it's like an MBA class in how to be a CTO for a large wealth firm. But we're out of time. I could have talked for another hour on some of this stuff because this is really where we live and breathe, but we've got to wrap. Can you please let people know where they can find out more information about HighTower Advisors?
Sure. HighTowerAdvisors.com is our website. And you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. And, again, we really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And I appreciate the time today, Craig. And it's been a pleasure.
No, I appreciate it's all mine for you to come here and share with us. It's been super helpful. Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top 3 takeaways from this interview. HighTower built their platform on Salesforce and inside Salesforce, and they built a customer-centric application, keeping all the navigation seamless. All the data sits in the same platform. One thing I tell a lot of our RIA aggregator, RIA TAMP broker-dealer clients is, if all things are equal, an all-in-one solution is often the best. Even though you may not get the best particular features and functionality in different areas, having all of your data in one place is invaluable. If you have the tech support team that can work out all the bugs and issues between integrating different applications, then sure, bring in different pieces and components to your heart's content. But if you don't, or if that's going to be an issue, it's better to have one vendor for more of your platform than not. Number 2, question: build versus buy. When would you do that? Recommend building out a 3-year roadmap for your firm, looking at outside tech on a regular basis, always evaluating vendors. You don't want to let vendors sit for a couple of years and don't really talk to them, don't really check how they're doing, because things will get stagnant. Not every vendor does this, but some vendors will kind of forget about you. Not the good ones, but some of them will. If you don't talk to them, they won't necessarily be talking to you. And then you're missing out maybe on features that they have available you don't know that they're using, or different ways to use the technology. So keep in constant contact with your vendors. At least once a year, have a big meeting to talk about how you're using the platform and how maybe you can use their software to differentiate. And building out a unique experience. The market is really well served by a lot of vendors, so let them compete for your business and let them help you build a unique experience. You want to try to avoid just incremental improvements as though that's not the only thing you do, but try to look for ways you can leapfrog the competition if you're looking at new technology. All right. You've made it to the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. Please go to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, analysis, links. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.